Story that caught the nation's attention. It appeared in the Indianapolis Star newspaper back on July 1st. A horrifying ordeal involving a 10-year-old girl. Quote, Dr. Caitlin Bernard, an Indianapolis obstetrician gynecologist, took a call from a colleague, a child abuse doctor in Ohio. Hours after the Supreme Court action, the Buckeye State had outlawed any abortion after 6 weeks. Now, this doctor had a 10-year-old patient in the office who was 6 weeks and 3 days pregnant. Could Bernard help? This is a heinous story. 10-year-old girl was raped and was pregnant with a rapist's baby? There's nothing more despicable than that. And she was now unable to end her pregnancy in the state of Ohio, so according to the report, that's where Dr. Caitlin Bernard steps in. Since Indiana had yet to change their abortion laws, the girl could still end her pregnancy if she crossed state lines. Her doctor got in contact with Bernard, and the 10-year-old was apparently driven across state lines, and her pregnancy was ended by Bernard in Indiana. The story quickly took hold all across the globe. Headlines, home and abroad, highlighted the tragic situation occurring, and it wasn't long before it became the focus of cable news.
It is hard to imagine anything more cruel, more disturbing than forcing a child, a 10-year-old still playing with fidget toys and tablets, to carry her father or her brother's child to term, or forcing her to travel across state lines for an abortion. And yet, here we are.
Ohio has outlawed abortion after 6 weeks, so the child will now have to travel to Indiana to get the procedure. And this case is putting the spotlight on America post Roe v. Wade.
A 10-year-old rape victim, that is a child.
Once the media ran with it, it became a central part of the West Wing's talking point.
This isn't some imagined horror. It's already happening. Just last week, it was reported that a 10-year-old girl was a rape victim in Ohio. 10 years old. And she was forced to have to travel out of the state to Indiana to seek to terminate the pregnancy and maybe save her life. Imagine being that little girl. I'm serious, just imagine being that little girl, 10 years old.
We have heard recent examples of what this means for a girl as young as 10 years old who endured an act of violence, back to the point of the 10-year-old girl that we've been hearing so much about. We have, I believe, 12 states in our country that right now will not even allow an exception in their ban on abortion, will not even allow an exception for rape or incest.
The liberal media then shoved this story in the faces of pro-life Republican governors.
The Indianapolis Star is reporting that a 10-year-old girl in Ohio who was 6 weeks and 3 days pregnant now has to travel across state lines to Indiana to receive an abortion. Will the state of South Dakota, going forward, force a 10-year-old in that very same situation to have a baby?
What's incredible is that nobody's talking about the pervert, horrible, deranged individual that raped a 10-year-old.
Should she have to have a child? Should she have to have that baby?
Every single life is precious for the
You'd
mother.
be okay with that, a 10-year-old girl having to have a baby?
No, I'm never okay with that. In fact, that story will keep me up at night. It absolutely will.
Obviously, this is a heartbreaking story, and Governor Nome touches on a pretty good point. Why isn't anybody talking about bringing the child rapist to justice? So Primetime decided to investigate this alleged child rape. But we quickly found out that authorities in Ohio haven't even begun a criminal investigation into the rape. This doesn't make any sense. No one reported this child rape to law enforcement. The Washington Post agreed with us and is digging into this too. Quote, under Ohio law, a physician, as mandated under Ohio Revised Code 2151-421, would be required to report any case of known or suspected physical, sexual, or emotional abuse or neglect of a child to their local child welfare or law enforcement agency. But we haven't found any evidence that this child rape was reported to law enforcement or any child welfare system. And neither has the Washington Post. And Primetime called Ohio Governor Mike DeWine's office, and they couldn't find any evidence of investigation or charges being filed anywhere in their state. So we followed up with the state attorney general's office, and they have yet to find any record on the matter, and we'll talk to the AG about this shortly. Then we called all of the abortion clinics in Ohio to see if they filed a police report about a 10-year-old being raped. None of the abortion providers in Ohio could provide any useful information. You would think the story of a sexual abuser roaming free assaulting 10-year-olds would raise quite a few concerns in small-town Ohio, but no one seems to be doing anything about it. No one even knows anything about it. Local media outlets aren't even alerting the public there's a monster on the loose. And from what we can find, no local newspaper or TV station picked up the story. The only source for this entire story is Dr. Caitlin Bernard, the abortion doctor in Indiana. Bernard ran quickly to the cameras last week.
You have a 10-year-old rape victim who cannot get these services anymore in Ohio. What does it feel like on your end of that phone call?
It's incredibly difficult. We need to be able to provide this care for everyone, for every single person that we get a call about from any state. How long do we have to push it, and how close we're going to get to the brink of death for patients needing abortion care.
And how practical is a 6-week window for people?
There's no way that you can expect anyone, much less a young person, to be able to identify and get to care by 6 weeks.
This is nothing new for Bernard. She's been kind of a press darling, never shied away from a story on abortion. Her quotes on the subject appearing in the New York Times, PBS, Politico over the last couple of years, but suddenly, Dr. Bernard doesn't want to talk to the press. We reached out to her for comment, and she told us, quote, "I have no information to share about this." And this isn't a partisan thing. The Washington Post also reached out to her for comment, and she said the exact same thing. She has nothing more to share. Now, Indiana law also requires someone like Dr. Bernard to report child rape to law enforcement, but we can't find any evidence that she did that there. In fact, Bernard has a history of not reporting abuse cases to the police, which we'll discuss later. So we're having no luck confirming this story. So how did the Indianapolis Star confirm the story? Well, the Washington Post says the reporting looks very suspect. Quote, "There is no indication that the newspaper made other attempts to confirm her account. The story's lead reporter, Shari Rudofsky, did not respond to a query asking whether additional sourcing was obtained." So the Indianapolis Star released one of the most viral stories of the summer, a story that's been seized on by the President of the United States, and now they're running and hiding. When primetime pressed the Star and their executive editor, Bro Crift, they basically said this. They told us, quote, "The facts and sourcing about people crossing state lines into Indiana, including the 10-year-old girl for abortions, are clear. We have no additional comment at this time." The facts and sourcing aren't clear at all, which is odd, because the Star's publisher has a code of ethics which states this: "We'll explain to audiences our journalistic processes to promote transparency and engagement. We will use confidential sources as the sole basis for published information only as a last resort and under specific procedures that best serve the public's right to know." So the newspaper run by Bro is violating their own code of ethics by hiding under their desks and clamming up. The Indianapolis Star has actually been accused of inaccurate reporting before. Just last month, the paper caught flack after they falsely reported that 2 CEOs had signed a letter supporting abortion rights when the 2 executives did not, and they had to issue a correction. Our buddy Bro actually issued a correction for reporting that happened over 100 years ago. So it's not like Bro doesn't do corrections, he does. The newspaper, their editor, and their reporter have all gone dark. Is that the kind of behavior of people who stand by their reporting? And what about the abortion doctor, Caitlin Bernard? And what about the fact that there is not a single police report? Are you telling me no one's trying to arrest a child rapist in Ohio? Because I know Ohio, and they don't tolerate that there. So where do we stand? If there's a 10-year-old child abuser out there on the streets of Ohio, he needs to be brought to justice. And if so-called doctors are covering up child rape, they need to be prosecuted. But if this horrific story isn't accurate, and the abortion doctor and the Indianapolis Star are misleading us, and the mainstream media and the President of the United States seizing on another hoax, then this is absolutely shameful and fits a pretty dangerous pattern of politically timed disinformation. Megan Fox is an investigative journalist and joins me now. So Megan, you've been looking into